What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of Best Bets and Props, where I go over all of my betting action for this weekend's UFC card, which is UFC Fight Night San Antonio, featuring a bantamweight scrap between Marlon Chito Vera and Corey Sandhagen. So that's an awesome matchup, very competitive one. That weight class never fails to deliver, and we still have 12 fights left on this weekend's card. Who knows what the weigh-ins on Friday will yield as far as further cancellations, but there's always some funny business going on and some guys we want to keep an eye on the scale. But I've got 4 moneyline bets right now, 2 underdogs and 2 favorites, 1 main prop bet in the main event, and I've got about 6 mini long shot props as well. Things that I gleaned from trading back and forth opinions on the props with my guest on this week's stream, which was Tim Troiano, one half of the Lambeau Plays podcast over on Narco Cop's channel. So it was an awesome time. Tim was very easy to work with. We had a fun time trading opinions of how these fights will play out. I urge you to go back and watch that. I've timestamped it for your convenience. And Tim just gave out some awesome advice on live betting, prop betting, just the way that he attacks things with very specific advice on like how to wager things appropriately, and just kind of gave us like a method to the madness on all of the high prop payout tickets that you see Tim and Narco Cop posting on Twitter every week, cashing big bets. If you want to be like those guys, watch that live stream. He gives out some epic advice. Before I go any further, I want to give a big thank you to everybody that has subscribed to the channel this week, interacted with the full card breakdown in any way, liking the video, commenting, retweeting on Twitter. It's been an absolute blast, and there's been a lot of good feedback on it. So I'm glad you guys find the content somewhat useful or entertaining. I just love talking about the best sport in the world of mixed martial arts, and we can all strive to make some money on this thing together in this crazy game that we play. So hit the like, hit the subscribe. Let's keep growing this channel as far as we can. Frankly, I didn't think it would grow as big as it has already, and I enjoy interacting with all of you guys week in and week out. That goes to just the viewers, to the people I make content with as well. It's been a blast and an honor. So let's move into the first bet of the card. At lightweight, I'm going to take the underdog shot on Trey Ogden's money line, plus 135 at the underdog price tag for Trey Ogden to defeat Manuel Torres. I think this should be closer to 50-50, if not a slight favorite for Trey Ogden, who's just been a more proven guy so far. He's a good grappler. I know he did drop the ball against Jordan Levitt and was very low output in that fight. The roles were reversed in his last fight in September. He came through as a big underdog, like over plus 320 underdog against Daniel Zellhuber, who outsized him, probably had an athletic advantage, but you know, there's some octagon jitters, and Trey Ogden just did very good at pushing the pace and, still counter-striking effectively. He's very defensively sound, this Trey Ogden, and he's going to have to be against Manuel Torres, who's such a fast starter with 8 knockouts, 8 submissions out of Torres' 13 wins. But the guy has not seen a round 2 in the past handful of years. It's been 8 consecutive fights that have all finished in round 1. A couple of losses, but I think 6 of those were wins. So he hasn't seen a round 2 since 2018, 2019 for the 27-year-old Manuel Torres. I'm not saying that he certainly is going to gas out in this fight. I'm just saying he has not proven to have success past that round 1 finish. So it's possible Torres comes in here and knocks out Trey Ogden, but the grappler in Trey Ogden with 11 submissions out of his 16 wins, he's got a very good takedown threat as well. Well-timed level change. I think if he can play Matador against Manuel Torres early, get the level change, then get into round 2, round 3, out of the comfort zone of Torres, I think Ogden could get that submission, which I got at plus 550 for a half of a unit there. So 1 unit on his money line at plus 135, and BetOnline dropped to plus 550 on Trey Ogden's submission prop, which I put a half of a unit on. I think it's come down a bit. I want to say on BetOnline it's around more of like the plus 300 range at this point for Trey Ogden by submission. Let me take a look and see where it's at on BetOnline right now. Plus 300 for Trey Ogden by submission. I think that's worth a poke. You could probably find that at a higher price tag on some other books like FanDuel or DraftKings, but that's how I'm playing this fight for the underdog in Trey Ogden. Another underdog shot up next on the money line of Lucas Alexander, the Brazilian making his second walk to the cage in the UFC at featherweight, taking on Steven Peterson. So Steven Peterson certainly represents a durable opponent, a guy who's been in the UFC now 7 times, going 3-4 in those. But Steven Peterson, let's face it, he's sort of a low-level gatekeeper. He can keep out guys that probably won't have a future with the promotion. And as such, his 3 victories in the UFC, 2 of those guys aren't in the UFC anymore. And the last one was Chase Hooper. He beat by decision. At that point, I think Chase Hooper was still like 21, and we've seen he's win-loss in the UFC. So 19-10 for Steven Peterson. Never been submitted. He has been knocked out one time, but ultimately very durable. Lucas Alexander is 27 years old. He did get submitted by Joe Anderson Brito. Got caught up in like a standing body triangle and just tapped out. I don't see that happening from Steven Peterson. What I see is Peterson walking him down, and Alexander is very good at counter-striking off of his back foot. He's athletic, can switch stances. His kicks are nasty. We saw him break the arm of former UFC fighter Jacob Kilbourne on the regionals with a kick to the body that was blocked. So, not the most power with his boxing, but he does have nice linear strikes with the hands, and I just like the skill set that I see. The athleticism for for Lucas Alexander here. I got him at plus 130 on the money line, put 1 unit on the underdog here. Still, I'm not getting overly invested. He's still unproven at this level, but I think this is a good test in the UFC to get himself in the win column. So give me Lucas Alexander. I could see a decision here over 3 rounds. The next money line I have is on Chidi Njokuani at middleweight to defeat Albert Duraev. And honestly, I could see Njokuani getting this done pretty much at any point inside the distance of this fight. I called it round 2 in my full card breakdown, but I do have Chidi Njokuani minus 160 on the money line. I paid 2 units on him in this bout. You're getting a striker versus grappler matchup here, of course. Njokuani, the long 6'3", 80-inch reach Muay Thai kickboxer, but his defensive wrestling has come a long way since his Bellator career, where we saw that get exploited quite a bit. Albert Duraev, the same age, 34 years old, a little bit smaller, still not the biggest or smallest middleweight in the division, but he's 15-4, not really doing too well in the UFC at this point after a successful ACB career overseas in that Russian promotion. He's just not the most durable guy, and he's not really the best wrestler either. With a last name like Duraev, you would expect this guy to kind of have like a Merab Dvalishvili of middleweight, game plan, going pillar to post, looking for takedowns, and I'd probably pick him if he did, but he stands and strikes, tests the waters with his striking long enough to get his eye swollen shut in his last 2 fights, both. Roman Kopylov in his debut, almost lost that fight, got dropped. But Roman Kopylov was able to get taken down, and Duraev barely squeaked through, but his eye swelled up shut by round 3, so he probably would have gotten stopped by TKO if that had gone on much longer. And the same thing happened in his last fight last summer against Joaquin Buckley, who really just sprawled and brawled at every opportunity. Hurt Duraev in round 1, hurt him in round 2 pretty badly, and once again, the eye swelled up shut, and the fight was stopped before round 3 could get started. So, not the best cardio, not the best wrestling. If he could manage to get Njokuani down, then yeah, he would have really good top pressure, and that would be, probably the end of the round would be ended in top position for Duraev. But he's just very inefficient at getting top control, like even getting the takedowns initiated. And I think with the long rangy weapons, the kicks of Njokuani, the improvements we've seen of his anti-wrestling, I think Njokuani ends this inside the distance here with those big weapons, whether it's in the clinch with elbows, whether it's at range with the kicks, whether it's stopping a takedown, like a really desperate takedown attempt from range, and then Njokuani just knees him in the face. I could see that happening too. So taking the money line, I think it's fair enough. Minus 160 for Njokuani. I put 2 units on that. Next money line up, I have 3 units on Manel Kape at flyweight to defeat Alex Perez. Alex Perez has had such a tumultuous career in the UFC as of late. He's not a bad talent. I mean, still only 30 years old. He's got pretty good wrestling. He does have a high pace that he fights with pretty early. Some good strikes. He's pretty high output, as you should be at flyweight. But Manel Kape usually is not. He's a counter striker, very athletic guy, can switch stances at times, but he's looking to set up big explosive movements. And he's been getting better in the UFC. Now on a 3-fight winning streak for Manel Kape, a 2-fight losing streak for Alex Perez. And why I say Perez's career has been tumultuous is he's failed to make weight in several appearances. He's just battled injuries, battled poor weight cutting. He's been hospitalized when he does try to make weight. When he does actually make it to the scales, he's missing weight. So I don't know how many times I had to break down the Matt Schnell fight with Alex Perez. It was frustrating. It never happened. And, the guy has been submitted a couple of times now back-to-back. And, I don't know what to say about it. I just feel like his durability is going to be very questionable if he can actually make weight in this spot. So Manel Kape, very underrated grappler, as we saw in his last fight against David Dvorak. Managed to sweep with a Kimura attempt and actually almost get that Kimura attempt locked in if Dvorak was not saved by the buzzer going into round 2 or round 3. I can't remember which one it was. But look, Manel Kape, 11 knockouts, 5 submissions out of 18 wins. Very talented guy. I think he gets this done inside the distance, if not just having bigger moments at flyweight and winning a 3-round decision. But like I said, with the weight cutting issues, the lacking durability, the lacking momentum, I just don't see this happening for Perez here. So minus 170 for Manel Kape, 3-unit bet on him. Pretty confident in that on Saturday. My action on the main event is the points handicap for Marlon Chito Vera, plus 5.5 points. I got that at minus 210 on BetOnline. I put 3 units on that. And on BetOnline, I think this is offered on BetOnline and 5 Dimes. Maybe a couple of other sportsbooks have started to add this points handicap prop. But it's come down on BetOnline. It's minus 200 right now, so I overpaid by a dime. It's come down since I bet it earlier this week. And I think it's a sneaky spot here for somebody like me who, I'm buying into the hype of Marlon Chito Vera. He's on a very good win streak. The momentum is nice. Corey Sandhagen is a very tough opponent, though. So I slightly lean Marlon Chito Vera, but not confidently enough that he can win the majority of this fight because I just don't like betting on guys that are moment winners at this weight class, guys who are probably going to get out-volumed and just have to rely on either ending the fight inside the distance, which is hard to do against Sandhagen, or just scoring the bigger moments that sway the judges for the majority of a 5-round fight, especially when Marlon Vera tends to drop round 1. But I will say, I do think that he's got a good chance as an underdog here because he's got the power advantage, he's on this momentum streak, and I think that he can make some simple improvements, like not dropping round 1, maybe being a little bit higher output, as a striker at bantamweight. I don't think that would be the most unfathomable thing to accomplish. But Corey Sandhagen, he can make improvements as well, and his style is just very elusive. He's a durable guy himself. Both guys have never been finished by strikes. So, I'm going to take this points handicap because all that means is that plus 5.5 points in a 5-round fight. All Marlon Chito Vera has to do is sway 1 round in his favor in this fight or end the fight inside the distance. So I think Vera is the more likely man to finish the fight. I don't think Sandhagen is going to give Chito Vera his first knockout loss. It's possible. Don't think it's too likely. I think Vera would end this fight. But at minus 210, 3 units on this bet. We just have to get 1 round scored on the judges' scorecard. So I know people might be a little bit unfamiliar with this prop. I don't use it all that often. I think this presents opportunities in certain fights and not others most of the time. And most of the time the sportsbooks are all over it. But I think this is a good price. And I'll write on the screen what that means. So just give this as an example. This is a 5-round fight. Let's say that Corey Sandhagen shuts him out, wins every round. That would be a 50, a 50, a 50 scorecard across 3 judges. 150, you would subtract that 5.5 handicap from Corey Sandhagen since he's the favorite. You would add up 45, 45, 45, and give that to Marlon Chito Vera, add 5.5 points for his handicap, and you'd see that the total points there left over is going to be higher for Corey Sandhagen. He would win that bet. I would lose. But say we get 49, 49, 49, 4 rounds for Corey Sandhagen, minus his 5.5 point handicap, and then in turn it would be 46, 46, 46. Just scored 1 round for Marlon Chito Vera, add his 5.5 round handicap, and you'll see that number then becomes larger. He would win the point handicap. We cash that bet, even though he lost 4 rounds to 1. He only had 1 big moment, 1 spot where he did enough damage in the round to sway the judges for that round. That's all we got to accomplish, and we cash on that bet. So that's a brief example. They do this for all fights on BetOnline and 5 Dimes. For 3-round fights, it's going to be plus or minus 3.5 round handicap. So it's a different way to attack fights that you might be seeing it play out one way, where like there's a big moment winner who could at least sway 1 round in his favor. So that's the way I'm attacking this. I do slightly lean Marlon Chito Vera, but I'm well aware of how durable and talented Corey Sandhagen is. Up next, I've got about 0.45 units invested on this fight between Preston Parsons and Trevin Giles. This is split up at welterweight between 3 mini prop bets that are, small investments but high payout, and it's really just for this fight to be close. And already the sportsbooks do think it is. It's a pick-em price tag either way. The implied odds for each guy to win right around 50-50, and that's how I line this fight as well. I slightly lean towards Trevin Giles winning. Just going based off of his, bigger stature, a former middleweight, and some UFC experience. But honestly, Preston Parsons, not the great stand-up that Trevin Giles shows, but he's got probably better wrestling and a better offensive BJJ game. But Trevin Giles is no slouch in the ground. He's got very good submission defense and better striking on the feet when he chooses to counter-strike and use it. So, I think this is going to play out very close, and the judges will be scratching their heads as to who won the decision if it does go to decision. So, I'm going to think that Trevin Giles can defend submissions, maybe end up in a dominant position on the mat in a few spots himself. We'll have a battle of control time, low output striking on the feet. Just for this to go to a split decision is actually at plus 900. So I like that quite a bit. 0.25 units on that at plus 900. And then I put 0.1 units on either guy to win by split, which are both lined at plus 1,400. So these are all on DraftKings is where I got these. So, just for this to play out close, and the money line already thinks it's going to play out close, 0.45 units to just make a boatload off of the high payout props here, I'll take that. My next cluster of prop bets here is on Nate Landwehr to defeat Austin Lingo by submission at featherweight in this bout. And it's fun. I get to bet on one of my favorite guys. Nate Landwehr is just a fun, scrappy dog of a fighter. He might lose round one. He might get his face jabbed off, maybe beat up a bit and bloodied by Austin Lingo, who has the better traditional boxing in round one, but I think Nate Landwehr is going to take over as this fight goes on, just like he did last time against David Onama, and like we've seen him do time and time again in his career in and out of the UFC. Nate Landwehr, by submission, is at plus 800, which I like in this spot. I put a quarter unit on him to win by sub at plus 800, and the reason why it's so high payout is because he's only gotten one submission, but we've seen him in the UFC, especially recently, actually chase submission attempts. We saw him in his fight against David Onama last August. In round two, he attempted a few different chokes on the ground, but they were so slippery and tired that he slipped right off of the neck of Onama, who was pretty resilient, even up to the end of that fight. But I do have the round 2 submission and round 3 submission at plus 2,200 and plus 4,000 respectively. I put a 0.1 unit stab on both of those in round 2 and round 3. So, again, Nate Landwehr has shown us that he's down to do this in round 2 and round 3. Against Ludovic Klein a few fights ago, he attempted a couple of submissions in round 2. And finally, he did it again in round 3 and actually got the choke, an anaconda on Ludovic Klein for the round 3 sub. So to get plus 4,000 for a round 3 submission of Nate Landwehr, a result that we've seen play out before. We know how tough Austin Lingo is. He's never actually been finished by strikes. Not the most battle-tested, but if you've got a guy who hasn't been finished by strikes or finished at all for that matter, it would make sense for a guy like Nate Landwehr to wear him down as the fight goes. And then, take this fight off of the element where Lingo's the most comfortable. Take him down to the mat and get a choke. So, again, plus 800 for Landwehr's sub. I got a quarter unit on that. Then I do have a 0.1 sprinkle on his round 2 and round 3 subs at plus 2,200 and plus 4,000 respectively. Looking at this card one final time, there's a couple of spots that stick out from a betting perspective. I'm not going to play myself, but I do like the alternate round totals for the overs in the Marlon Chito Vera Corey Sandhagen fight. The over 2.5 and the over 3.5 alternate totals I think are pretty safe since neither guy has ever been finished by strikes and only Corey Sandhagen has been finished one time by submission. I think this largely takes place at striking range where Vera is a hard hitter. Corey Sandhagen has actually been pretty durable so far, as I mentioned. So the over 2.5, over 3.5, those are spots you could pair with other things you like on this card. In a parlay, I like the any of the live betting after round 1 spots between like the front-loaded fighters. Daniel Pineda is going to be most likely to get a finish in round 1. If Tucker Lutz can survive that round 1, you could probably get a better number on him than that minus 285 money line. You could chop that down a bit by live betting Tucker Lutz after round 1. Same thing can be said for, of course, Trey Ogden over Manuel Torres. Like, I took the money line pre-flop on Trey Ogden at a plus number. You could probably get a juicier plus number on him after Manuel Torres if he doesn't get the job done over Ogden in round 1. So bet Ogden between rounds 1 and rounds 2 for a better underdog shot there. Again, Manuel Torres, as we mentioned earlier, hasn't been out of round 1 in like 8 consecutive fights. So not to say that he can't, but it just hasn't been done in a while. Same thing can, of course, be said for the CJ Vergara fight against Daniel Da Silva. I like any form of the unders, but those are all juiced pretty heavily for this fight not to go. The under 1.5 rounds in a flyweight fight, a dangerous proposition at minus 195, but it's a very likely opportunity here to once again fade Daniel Da Silva, or, assume that he gets the job done in round 1 where he's most likely to do so. So the under 1.5 in the Vergara-Daniel Da Silva fight, I'm not brave enough to take that at minus 195, but I do think it hits. So, those are the spots I like. Again, check out that live stream I did on Thursday night with Tim Troiano. Awesome, just betting advice, betting insight to his strategy of making money on just mixed martial arts in general, but he does give out a couple of plays at the very end of the video, kind of like a mini Lambo parlay, and also an awesome, really tinfoil hat, but 100-1 odds, same game parlay on Holly Holm and Yana Santos. So check out that video. I timestamped it for your convenience, of course, and at the very end, check out what Tim has as far as like his favorite bets for the card. So hit the like, hit the subscribe. I'll talk to you guys very soon. Good luck on all of your betting action, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.